The girl looked down at herself and cried out. Upon her bare skin, from neck to knees, there had appeared strange stripes, brown lines, furry, of actual hair, running crosswise upon her thighs and belly, breasts and back. "What do you think?" Gus called to his audience. "Is she not a tigress?" "Today I learned that vampires have access to furry magic." Our story begins in the city of Shadowzar, under the manor of Lord Endithor, in a basement where the man is, perhaps solemnly, practicing dark magic, a ritual involving the sacrifice of a servant girl. Before the deed can be finished, however, soldiers, led by one Count Naylor, burst in and apprehend Endithor. The ritual Endithor weaved was, in some way, an attempt to assassinate a third man, known only as Lord Cuss, and, as he's being dragged away, Endithor accuses Naylor himself of being part of the plot, even of suggesting this very deed himself. Naylor, naturally, denies any involvement, and Endithor is sent off to be judged. To the fury of Endithor's daughter, Ariel, he is given a quick trial and subjected to an extremely grisly and public execution. Behind closed doors, Naylor and Cuss, whom Naylor seems quite afraid of, discuss how their power is consolidating in Shadowzar. Unbeknownst to them, however, Ariel herself has sworn revenge and will stoop to any means, even the darkest magic, to see Naylor, whom she blames for her father's death, slain. Red Sonja finds herself in the Dragon Seed Tavern of Shadowzar, where she's playing a game of knives against one of the local mercenaries, a lad named Sendez. A game, it should be said, that she wins easily. As the rowdy tavern patrons enjoy their drink and cheer and fun, the crowd suddenly grows silent. Ariel, whom everyone recognizes as the daughter of the recently executed Endithor, had arrived, seeking to speak with Sendez in private. As it turned out, the two had known each other since they were young. Sendez excused himself and departed with Endithor's daughter. Sonja herself was curious about the matter and learned a bit of the situation with Endithor, but paid it little mind, deciding to retire for the evening. However, on her way back to her hotel, she was suddenly attacked, surrounded in the shadows by children. A gang of boys, led by one named Chost, tried to mug the warrior woman, but of course, the first flash of her steel sent them scattering, leaving only their plucky leader behind. After interrogating Chost and learning that his friends were just trying to rob her for food money, Sonja, ever sympathetic, left the kid some coin before being on her way. The next morning, as she's out and about, Sonja is approached by Sendez, who properly invites her to a party. Count Naylor, he explains, had hired him as a mercenary some time ago, and in light of recent events, was holding a social gathering at his manor. Thinking Sonja might have a good time, or at least enjoy the free food, Sendez insists on her going. At the party itself, Sonja is less than thrilled about rubbing elbows with the city's elite, but tries to maintain a polite attitude and enjoy the food. That is, of course, until the evening's entertainment arrives. In a burst of fire appeared Lord Cuss, announced to all present as an illusionist and magician, who began to put on quite the act. while most in attendance were entertained by what, to them, seemed like simple showmanship, Sonja was not. The Hyrcanian knew well enough, thanks to her years of experience, that Kuss was a sorcerer, a practitioner of dark magic, and when he turned his eyes on her and tried to work his magic, she grew threatening in kind. Blade in hand, Sonja made it clear that she would gut Kuss with steel should he try anything. The party guests were astonished. Naylor was furious. Sendez was embarrassed, but Kuss was calm. And as Sonja stormed out into the night, he decided then and there that he wanted her for himself. Later that night, Sonja was awoken from restless dreams by Chost, the street rat from before, at her window. The boy had come to warn Sonja of strange men who appeared to be spying on her. Heading outside into the dimly lit streets, Sonja and Chost initially sought to find the men in question, but not too long later they found, to their horror, something much worse. A woman being attacked before their eyes, her blood drained from her body by a horrifying creature. Though Sonja did not get a good look at the assailant, the wound on the corpse could not be mistaken. There was a vampire in Shadowzar. The next day, Ariel, who had been reading her father's notes, went to confront the witch he had learned his magic from. This witch, Osamu, lived in a rather isolated part of town, in a dimly lit apartment few would pay attention to. Osamu confessed to Endithor's daughter that she taught the man the ways of sorcery, and taunted her even, revealing that she took bodily favors, not coin, as payment. Osamu, a vile crone, obviously planned to kill Ariel with poisoned wine, but the girl was just as crafty and swifter. Ariel struck Osamu with a poisoned dagger, paralyzing the witch, then gathering up whatever items she felt were useful, leaving Osamu to die. Later that night, Sendez was playing a game of throwing knives at the Dragon Seed Tavern when he was approached yet again by Ariel, who beckoned him to talk in private. Sendez, who had poor luck in the last few days, had even worse luck here. Ariel used magic to charm the man, compelling him to go to Count Naylor and attack him. Sendez, drunk as he was on Ariel's magic, complied, assaulting Naylor with sword, though the Count survived and Sendez was forced to escape from the man's guards. For the second time in as many nights, Sonja was awoken by a visitor, Sendez this time at her rented door, looking for a place to hide. After stowing the man away in the attic, Sonja managed to convince the city guards who had come looking for him to be on their way, though not without much back and forth yelling. By the time the guards had dispersed, Chost and his boys had reappeared, and Sendez was explaining to Sonja all that had transpired that day, how he was entranced, how he had attacked the Count, and how even now, he believed his life to be over. The Count himself was as upset as Sendez, furious that his guards weren't able to find his assailant. Naylor turned to Kuss, who revealed that he sensed the touch of magic at work. Ariel, he deduced, was behind the attack. Astonished, yet furious, Naylor sent an assassin, his most skilled archer, to deal with the girl. This assassin would return only an hour or so later, howling in agony about the witch and how she held his very soul in her grasp. As Naylor watched in horror, his archer fell to the floor, dead. Auriel, it seemed, had turned to even darker sorcery. Endithor's daughter had used some black magic to enslave even her own servants, with the exception of one girl, Lara, who is understandably terrified of her mistress's new dark powers. Lara decides to help Sendez, who is now actively plotting Auriel's downfall, and while the lady is away, tries to grab as many of her magical amulets as she can carry. Unfortunately, this is when Cuss takes his opportunity to strike. Cuss, the vampire that had been stalking the city streets, intended to slay Auriel himself, yet found only Lara and the mind-controlled servants in her abode, and slew all but the young girl himself before departing. As this was occurring, Auriel herself was across town, having returned to Osamu's apartment to look for an amulet of great power she suspected to be there. Such a racket she made in tearing up Osamu's old floorboards that she awoke the denizen of the room below, Red Sonja. After the incident with the town guard, Sonja was forced to look for new lodgings, and had come to rent out a room, coincidentally, right below where Auriel was now searching, and was less than happy about being awoken 3 nights in a row. Sword in hand, the Hyrcanian confronted the source of her disturbed sleep, and found Auriel, amulet in hand. Endithor's daughter escaped into the night after displaying some of her magic, though in the scuffle, she dropped the amulet and Sonja retrieved it. The next day, Sonja managed to meet up with Sendez once again and, together with Lara, planned their next move. It was apparent now that the goings-on in Shadowzar were bigger than any of them, and they wished to be cautious. But Auriel, they all agreed, needed to be dealt with. Sendez and Lyra planned to lure Auriel into a trap using a forged letter from Naylor. Sonja additionally intended to go, but her exhaustion from so many sleepless nights appeared to have caught up with her, and she passed out at some point, awakening again only after they had departed. Unfortunately, the trap, a simple ambush, was a failure, and Sendez died trying to cut down the witch, for that was what Auriel now was. Lyra would have met the same end, but Sonja managed to arrive, the amulet she carried shielding them both from Auriel's magic. The pair retreated away from Auriel, though found themselves in even greater danger still. Cuss had come for Sonja, intending to make her his own. He attacked her at her apartment, even killing one of Chost's friends. The boys had, after all, congregated there. Cuss worked his magic on Sonja almost as soon as she arrived, and though she did briefly falter, the swordswoman was able to hit the vampire with the same amulet that had just saved her from Auriel, driving Cuss away. It was the next day when Red Sonja would meet Auriel again, though Endithor's daughter had come in peace. She desired the amulet, certainly, but also sought Sonja's aid. They had a common enemy, Auriel argued, the vampire. Auriel wanted Count Naylor dead. This was true, but she managed to convince Sonja that Cuss, the true threat in Shadowzar, must be destroyed. And so the pair set off, with Sonja using a bit of deception to secret Ariel into Naylor's palace, where the two confronted the Count, and where Endithor's daughter, at long last, enacted her vengeance. Immediately after, the pair are confronted by Cuss in all of his horrible glory. Ariel, though dangerous with her magic, was no match for the vampire and was slain. Sonja would have lost her life here as well, but the power of the amulet, as well as the assistance of Naylor's guards, who now saw Cuss for what he was, allowed her to keep the vampire at bay until dawn, where the rays of the sun at last destroyed him. The story ends with Sonja departing from Shadowzar after collecting a sizable reward for slaying the vampire, with Chost and Lyra, who had fallen in love during this ordeal, departing on their own as well, to see their own plans through. And so, with another ordeal behind her, Sonja sets off on her horse to the west, seeking further adventure. Endithor's daughter is a fitting name indeed, for Ariel is as much a main character in this story as Sonja herself, though she does spend a good deal of her screen time as an antagonist. We see her transform from a girl upset at the injustice her father suffered to a vengeful witch who cares little for who dies on her warpath. She escalates quickly, going from simply charming to ripping men's souls out of their bodies in the span of basically a few days, and if she had any remorse for her terrible deeds, she definitely never shows it. The more direct antagonist, Cuss, is a classical take on the vampire villain. Arrogant, prideful, and unapologetically horny. While he is doing obviously evil shit behind the scenes, he only ends up coming to blows with Sonja because he wants to try and make her a member of his new vampire harem, which worked about as well as one could expect. And then there's Naylor, the iconic corrupt bureaucrat. Naylor is the guy who starts off this entire book's plot through a convoluted, backward scheme that results in Endithor getting murdered, which, of course, starts Ariel on her warpath. While Cuss and Ariel have simple enough goals, Naylor's overall scheme didn't make sense to me even on subsequent readings. He's a noble who made a deal with a vampire to extend his influence and control in Shadowzar, but he started having second thoughts about working with, an actual vampire. He convinces Endithor to seek a magical way to deal with the vampire problem, but I guess he gets cold feet and, like the opportunistic bastard he is, arrests Endithor and has him killed off to save face with Cuss? This was meaningless because later on he tries betraying the vampire himself anyway. It doesn't really matter. Endithor's daughter definitely had a glut of characters, and 3 antagonists in one short book makes for a crowded story to say the least. Still, it's probably my second favorite of the 6 novels, next to The Ring of Akribu, filled with all the nice writing I've come to expect in this series. I'm not sure if it was meant to be a joke, by the way, but Sonja constantly being awoken in her sleep throughout the novel definitely started to feel funny. Anywho, I give this one a 5 out of 5. Definitely a solid story, and you should give it a try if you have the chance. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, then please leave a like or share this video with a friend. If you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, you'll be alerted whenever I upload new videos. Finally, if you want to support me directly, head on over to Patreon. Patrons keep the channel alive with their donations and in turn get early access to my lore videos. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.